President Biden is expected to announce new sanctions on Russia today. Now, this follows sanctions announced earlier this week.
That's right. The president said while Moscow will be hit financially, Americans will also feel the ripple effect.
Defending freedom will have cost for us as well and here at home. We need to be honest about that. But as we do this, I'm going to take robust action to make sure the pain of our sanctions is targeted at the Russian economy, not ours.
And we want to bring in Edward Fishman now. He's a former State Department staff member and now an adjunct fellow at the Center for a New American Security. Welcome. So great to have you with us. So it does appear the sanctions from earlier this week and whatever sanctions have been put into place up until now did not deter Putin and Russia from taking this military action. So in your view, in your opinion, what will it take to seriously derail Moscow's military advancement?
Look, I think we need to be honest with ourselves. The threat of sanctions has failed to deter Putin from invading Ukraine. It looks like Russia has launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and this is close to the worst-case scenario that we envisioned in recent months. But that doesn't mean that sanctions don't have a rationale anymore. President Biden for months now has been threatening swift and severe consequences if Russia invades Ukraine. Now that Russia has invaded Ukraine, it is incumbent upon the White House to make good on that threat and to send the Russian economy into a tailspin. It needs to be very clear, manifest for the whole world to see that the cost of invading countries and trying to redraw borders by force is complete and utter economic devastation. And I do believe that the White House is prepared to unleash that level of economic devastation on the Russian economy.
Mr. Fishman, what lessons should be learned about this sanctions strategy on Russia after it took over Crimea in 2014? Are we expecting the sanctions here to be more pointed, more sharp, more effective?
Sure. Good question, Omar. I was involved in 2014. And what I would say is back then, this was the first time we'd imposed sanctions on an economy as large as Russia. And it was a sea change in U.S. strategy. For 25 years leading up to the Crimea annexation, the policy of the United States had been to integrate Russia into the global economy. So what we did is we started small. We really treaded lightly with sanctions. We imposed really modest sanctions on Russia in 2014. I'd say they were about a 2 out of 10 in intensity. And even so, the Russian economy was sent into a tailspin. Even modest sanctions on Russia led to a massive decline in the ruble, a significant economic recession in Russia. That lasted for multiple years, frankly, until President Trump came into office in 2017. What we're seeing now is the Biden administration getting ready to impose sanctions that are orders of magnitude stronger than what we did in 2014. And so if you think about the fact that the 2014 sanctions were modest and still sent the Russian economy for a tailspin, the sanctions that are imposed in the coming days by the United States, the European Union, the UK, and other countries will have much, much greater devastation on the Russian economy. And I think we'll lay bare that there are substantial costs to the type of aggression that Putin is perpetrating against Ukraine.
But Edward, as the sorry, go ahead.
No, I just had a quick follow-up on that. I mean, we've mentioned that China, Russia's been looking to China for some help. Could you see any other economic pressures being put on the U.S. if the sanctions on Russia aren't exactly as pointed as we hoped? Could the U.S. put other economic pressures on countries helping Russia?
Yeah, so look, there's been talk about China serving as some sort of white knight for Russia. That's just not in the cards. First of all, it's not in China's interests, right? China's not going to do anything that's not in its economic interest to help Russia. In fact, I actually see a scenario in which China takes advantage of this opportunity where Russia loses markets, where Russian commodities companies, for instance, lose markets in the West. I would see Chinese companies rushing to backfill. Will China continue to buy goods and services from Russia? Of course they will. I'm not suggesting that China is going to join in on sanctions. But the idea that China somehow is a lifeline to Russia and is going to make sanctions feckless is just not accurate. It's not true, and I'm not concerned about that in the slightest.
But a real quick question before we let you go. As the global economy becomes more intertwined, isn't there danger, though, that the pain that we feel here in the U.S. due to these sanctions could become politically unpopular?
Of course. And look, President Biden, I think, was right the other day to prepare the American people that there could be blowback. We could see higher oil prices. We've already seen some higher oil prices in recent days as Putin has escalated his aggression. The thing I'd say, though, is what are the costs of doing nothing? If Putin is allowed to just redraw European borders from with force and launch the largest war in Europe since the Second World War, and the U.S. does nothing, what are the costs to that? I'd suggest that the economic costs in the long run would be even greater than the cost of actually laying down the line right now and demonstrating to Putin that this invasion will not go unnoticed.
Good point. Edward Fishman, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.